Every friend group has one of these: the bread fan, the ADHD queen, glasses, mom, the lesbian, other mom, overcoming irony poisoning, rich parents, and Vegeta. Azumanga Daioh is so good. Do the kids still like Azumanga Daioh? I hope so. It's something special. The slice of life genre is marked by a breadth of works that take solace in mundanity. That's naturalism, baby. But even within its genre, Azumanga Daioh stands out as the quintessential example, and for many, an entry point into the very medium of anime or manga. It's difficult to fully describe the appeal of a work like this, one that rests almost latently inside so many fans of the medium, but I'll give it a shot anyway, because it's dear to me. I believe Azumanga Daioh's greatest strength is the unity of 4 key pillars: how it plays with archetypes, its comedy, its sincerity, and how time passes. Let me explain what I mean. Everyone in the main cast is archetypical in one way or another. If I recall correctly, this image was the first to explain these tropes to me so clearly. However, each character has more to them that puts a unique spin on their relationships to each member of the rest of the cast. For example, Tomo paired with Yomi is a classic bokeh tsukomi wise guy straight man routine. When around Osaka, Tomo takes on a cheeky, all-in-good-fun antagonism. With Kagura, the two become bullheaded and competitive, and when Tomo, Osaka, and Kagura come together, a solidarity through their mutual underachieving emerges. If you're familiar with the series, who would you say is the main character? You may have a knee-jerk answer, but there's a good chance 4 other people would have 4 different answers. In fact, I asked on Twitter, and while the most common answer was Chiyo, Sakaki, Osaka, and Tomo were almost just as common. Essentially, the cast of Azumanga Daioh isn't set up as tiers of primary, secondary, and tertiary characters, but rather a fully self-sufficient ecosystem where each character can only thrive to the degree they do thanks to the presence of each other character. This has the side effect, too, of making every possible interaction between any 2 characters a one-way ticket to Jokesville. Don't worry, I'm not going to waste your time struggling to explain comedy to you, but I will say, Azumanga Daioh's humor strikes a perfect balance between absurdity and naturalism. Save for the contents of a handful of dream sequences, nothing that happens in the series is impossible or even particularly improbable. Nothing is out of character either. That being said, there's still plenty of over-the-top highs that make for eruptive punchlines. Osaka mistakenly bearing a knife in front of her sleeping teacher, Chiyo getting trapped in a mascot costume, Yukari nearly killing her students in her car. These things are all absurd, but they fit right in with the show's tone. The voice acting really launches these bits into the stratosphere too, with the voice cast's willingness to be weird or obnoxious with their delivery.
Nyamo! はい、なんでしょう。これ何？これって？これよこれ！何よこの枕？なんかふにょーっと。
In fact, for as much as I love the manga, I think the anime is the superior version. I have no clue why, but I remember the anime being kind of stiff, but the animation is super vibrant. I don't even think stiffness is a bad thing or anything. Choosing limited animation for fewer, more expressive drawings is just that, an artistic choice, but this anime adaptation gets a lot of mileage playing with the format of the medium. One of my favorite examples of this is the moment where Minamo gets drunk and gives the girls the birds and the bees speech, and it just cuts out the dialogue and starts sounding like an advertisement for a dialysis clinic, and then the following morning the girls all formally thank her for the educational advice. Oh, and then there's also the bit where perhaps the augmentation that fully sells the anime as my favorite version is its use of music. Curry Quarter Quartet, who composed the anime score, uses an array of instruments that are small and somewhat childish to compose sweet, breezy, playful songs that could not fit better with an Azumanga Daioh's tone. The recurring placement of these joyous communal melodies has made them feel nearly as ubiquitous for weebs as the stock music in SpongeBob is for an entire generation of millennials. So deeply have these songs burrowed into my head that turning on the OST instantly turns my hyperactive little brain to jello. I listened to the soundtrack and its accompanying tribute album by the duo behind the show's opening and ending themes on a loop while writing this video's script, which is a monumental feat considering I usually can't listen to anything that isn't drone or 10 hours celestial white noise while writing without getting horribly distracted. The playful sincerity in the show's music is present within all its facets, from its distinctly cute visuals to its warm summer day pacing. Azumanga Daioh manages to be at once upbeat and sentimental with equal charm, with none of its elements generating friction against the rest. The girls may rib at one another, butt heads or squabble, but they still like and care for one another. They recognize one another as key components of their formative years. Though comedy is the show's primary mode of storytelling, there are just enough moments of compassion peppered in to balance things out and to lock the pacing into an ideal groove. And it's precisely this pacing that allowed the manga's 3-year run in Dengeki Daioh to play out in ostensibly real time. Yeah, the 3 real-life years the manga was serialized for line up directly with the cast's 3 years in high school. In Japan, middle and high school are both 3 years each, if that's confusing at all. In America, it's 2 years for junior high, 4 years for high school. Just figured I'd clarify. Across those 3 years, seasons change, Azuma's art style matures, and characters grow. Sakaki is the clearest example of this, and I think she's kind of a fan favorite too. At the start of the series, she's perceived as the quiet, mysterious, alluring woman of few words. We learn, though, before too long, that she loves cute things, wants to be cute and make cute things, but she has difficulty expressing herself. She feels like she doesn't fit the role, so she aimlessly yearns to be more like the rest of the cast who act without inhibitions. As the series progresses and she gets closer to those characters, though, she opens up more and finds ways to express her cute side. This runs parallel to and is made microcosmic in her relationship to cats. She loves cats. She wants a cat. However, her family is allergic, and all the neighborhood cats are intimidated by her, so she's unable to get close to any. That is, until she befriends an endangered island cat on vacation. The two form a bond and help one another, and Sakaki leaves the experience feeling changed, more fulfilled. Azumanga Daioh made 90% of the slice of life genre obsolete for me. When I think, man, I could really go for a nice cozy little anime right about now, I almost always fall back into Azumanga Daioh's arms. Rewatching or rereading the series is like dusting off and opening up an old photo album. It feels like reconnecting with old friends. I'll level with you. Azumanga Daioh has been in my life for well over a decade at this point. I first read the series shortly after starting high school and during a period in which I had even fewer friends than I would have by the end of high school. That is to say, I had no friends. At a brief stint at a junior high a few years prior, I had watched my one friend get beaten up for being a nerd and transfer shortly after to a different school. So I kept it pretty close to the chest that I was into anime. I was freaked out at this new big school full of people who were almost exclusively older than me. It felt like I had been thrust headfirst into a version of the real world I had absolutely no bearing on. I spent my lunch periods for those first few months tucked into the various corners of the library, trying to stay out of sight as I read a variety of the manga the school had, the very first of which being Azumanga Daioh. Wow, I thought to myself, these girls are such good friends. In this regard, Azumanga Daioh now doesn't take me back to my high school memories, simply because it's not what high school ever felt like for me. Instead, it teleports me right back into its world as though no time has passed. Following a full decade of rumination on this little series, I've got zero reservations about calling Azumanga Daioh perfect. I imagine for some, this might seem like kind of a strange flag to plant. Why commit to calling something designed around an absence of narrative or thematic substance perfect? In part, that question answers itself. Azumanga Daioh's perfection lies in imperfection, specifically the imperfection of its cast. The girls' aptitudes for school, for the subsequent working world and regimented social order, vary significantly. These are things Japanese society puts much of an individual's perceived value into, but in Azumanga Daioh, they have no bearing in how equally the narrative treats them. The main girls are all given equal space, are shown as equals, care for one another equally. Even the girls' teachers aren't themselves pictures of functional adulthood, and that's fine too. Yukari and Minamo are better for still containing facets of their high school selves. Yukari represents the spry, unencumbered spirit of youth, while Minamo nurtures it. Azumanga Daioh is a resounding message to a younger generation that it's okay to not have everything figured out and together right away. That these things should and do take time. That it's okay to take time to just exist, to be a human being, not a human doing, as Scatman John would say. Perhaps this is the other part of why Azumanga Daioh feels so nostalgic, more nostalgic than even its slice of life contemporaries, in that it communicates directly to its audience that there's still value in the youthful mindsets the cast carries, and by extension, that you carried when you were their age. I generally try to stay skeptical of nostalgia in many regards, especially as it's used for the cynical generation of profit as a means of escapism. I find, however, that Azuma's works depict a more idealistic nostalgia, one where nostalgia is a vehicle for self-reflection and self-appreciation. If you look, there's a lot of good in the people we once were, good that's still there to be extracted from within ourselves, good we can use to be present in our lives and into our futures. For as lighthearted and easygoing as Azumanga Daioh's world is, time is always progressing. Things are always changing. Our hair grows, we measure our lives in microscopic milestones each time we get it trimmed. But the passage of time is only a counter ticking down to an ending if we make it so.